Hi peeps, I'm Zen and welcome to another exciting Figma Into the Wild video. In this one we're going to take the base page we made in the previous video and we're going to add this main advert and its fake little rotating buttons down there, and then we're going to add these two adverts as well, info ads, whatever they are. Okay, and that will then lead us into the next video where we will finish off the page with these little tiles. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this session should be fairly straightforward and hopefully won't take us forever and a day to do it. As usual, we're logged into our Figma website. I'm down to the Into the Wild project that we made, and here we've got the base page, which is still called Untitled, so we'll just rename that to base. And then, as we've done before, we're going to duplicate this page and then we're going to rename it as index because that is the home page. And now we go straight into it. Okay, so this is what we've got so far. One of the first things we're going to need to do is to change the height of our website or our web page. Okay, so click onto the Surface Book up here on the top left hand corner and we go down to H here, and I'm just going to change it to 3,500, which should be more than big enough for what we want to do in total. And then you're going to open this up and we can see we've got the footer there, and we're just going to drag the footer all the way down. Okay, we're not going to be worried too much about its placement. We're just going to drag it all the way down for the moment. We'll sort out where it should be properly later on. Right, so the first thing we need to do is really add the picture, because that is the sort of main one or the main part of this. As always, we have got these images from Unsplash. I should really see if I can get myself sponsored by them. So one of the things I've done in Unsplash since the last video was to actually create an account, because you can create a free account with Unsplash, and by doing that I was able to create collections, and so that's what I've done for all of the images in this video. I've liked them all and then added them to a collection so they are all in one place for me, which makes my life a lot easier and yours. You can see the address here, and I will put a link to that in the description for you, and then you can get access to them as well. Okay, so the first image we're going to be using is this one here. Okay, man sitting at mountains. That is a long way to go walking. So what we're going to do, as always, we're going to download the large version. I mean, the original size is just ridiculous. It's really good, but you know, to be honest, even medium would be good enough, but we'll go with large. Okay, and sound nath, thank you very much. Okay, and then we'll drop back into Figma, and what we're going to do is to add that image in. So drop down menu, place image. Okay, open, and then I'm just going to click. Okay, just a single click and let it come out on its main size. Now pressing the control button and the scrolling on my mouse wheel, I can pull out, and we can see if I just put this in like that. There we go. Now zooming back in, we can see that although that is still quite good on its own, it's taken up more space than I want it to. Okay, and we're not showing enough of all the mountainside. Don't forget, we can always preview this just to see what it looked like in an actual web page or as a complete web page. And we can see here that he is too far down. Okay, so we're going to make some adjustments here. And the first thing we're going to do is actually probably just move them up a bit. Okay, because one of the things we want to do is we want this to almost take up the whole web page. Okay, almost the whole web page, not all of it, but most of it. We want a little bit of a gap at the bottom so people are aware that there is other content, but because this is like the big advert, we do want it to be, you know, quite significant. but we do need to shrink it a bit. So again, always go for the corners, always use your shift button. This allows us to keep the aspect ratio as we are doing it. And so we're never going to get this exactly as it is in the original one unless I actually go around and type in the exact values, which is what I could do, but that would ruin the effect of trying to replicate it. So we're going to zoom back in and still want to get it. Let's just see what it looks like again in here. Again, that is still far too big. So what I'm going to do is start moving it up until it's roughly where I want it to be. And I think that's probably about right, because we've got this gap here. I might just push it up just that little bit more. And because I am who I am, I actually want to find out what this place is here. All I'm going to do is draw a line. And that's there. I can see where it says 818. I'm probably going to move that up to about 800. So let me move that out of the way first. There you go, that's at 800, and now I can actually move this so it matches that line, you see. And now we'll move it in here. We've got that gap. Now some people might say that gap is too big, and they might well be correct. Because I've got a fairly chunky sort of margin between this image and this advert and the next one, I do want to make sure that a bit of it can be seen. So now we can see it like this. The question is really, is it too big? Do we need to shrink the image down a bit? And I think the answer to that one is yes, because we are losing some of the detail of the mountainous stuff on the back, and we want to continue to emphasize how far this guy's going to be walking. So again, we flip back over, control mouse wheel to pull out a bit, shift into the corner. Then really we're doing this down to our own preference. Now we can't go any smaller than this, because as you can see, we've now reached the width of the page. But I would say that's probably close. Let's just bring the original one back over. So there you go, that's the original one, and that's that one. And I would say they're pretty close to the same thing. In fact, I would argue we've perhaps got a little bit more information over here, but that's fine. Like I say, I'm not trying to do an exact copy of what I made a couple of months ago, just a good enough version to it. So the next thing we need to do on this is to add the text which appears over here. So again, we'll go back over here. We can zoom back in a bit now. In fact, we should be able to go to zoom to fit. Oh no, that's not the one I wanted. I was hoping there's a fit to width, but there isn't one. Okay, so we'll just mouse wheel it in. Okay, so text. I'm just going to click it in for the moment. We're going to, we've still got however you pronounce that. Let's go for about font size 64 for the moment. Obviously we want it white. And I'm going to want to have the text centered. Got hiccups there, my apologies. And then it is the holidays with a challenge. And actually, that looks pretty much how I wanted it. Let's just click off so I can rearrange it. Probably want it, yeah. To me, the positioning And those each to their own. As it turns out, it's got very nice X and Y values. I like that. Nice rounded numbers. I think that's okay. I mean, feel free to move it around yourself and to get them right. But I would say that there is a job done. Oh, just realised that's still there. Still got a line here, haven't I? I can get rid of that. Okay, so next bit in this is to add the little circles. And that is literally what they are. They are the ellipses. And so all we do is that we're going to do a couple of ellipses, and again use the shift button to keep aspect ratio, and we're going to draw them. And I think about size 8. Yeah, 18 looks about right. Now we need to format them. So the first one is actually solid black, okay, which is all the zeros. Okay, and then what we're going to do is do Control C, Control V, and move. Oh, that didn't seem to work. Control C, Control V. There you go. Copy and paste. Move that over, and this time I just realised I gave that one 2 fills. Don't need both. And this one here, we actually want to give it a stroke. And we'll make the stroke about 2 pixels. But then we're going to get rid of the fill. And looks like 2 is perhaps not proud enough. So let's make it 4. Okay, 4 is okay. And then we're just going to Control C and Control V. And I'm going to move that across. Notice how we're keeping the distance the same, which is 10 pixels in this one. And then do it again. So we're using these red lines that are coming up as a guide. Okay, to make sure that they're all evenly spaced and are aligned the same way. And so we just need 5 of them, which I think is what I've got there. And then what I'm going to do is just do that over here. Okay, so let's 1 to 5. We're going to group. Where is it? And we'll rename that. We'll call them add selectors. That's really what they are. And so now we've got them as a group. Hopefully we should be able to align them to the page, essentially. And then with that we can decide whether or not we want to move them up and down. I would say just move them down a bit. You know what I'm like? I like my rounded numbers. 760. 65. 770. Okay, I think that's a bit further down than the other one, but it's nice. It's got a nice positioning for the first one. They're nicely spread out. What more do I want? And again, if we compare this to the original, okay, so there's the original. And that's the one we've got now. In fact, let's do it like that. So, as we said before, that was really nice and easy. It's time for us to move on to the next one, which is where we start doing the infomercials or adverts for the actual holidays. And to do that, one of the things we need to bring back in is the grid. But before that, I think what we need to do is to regroup up all these advert parts. So we've got the ad selectors, we've got the text holiday with a challenge, and then we've got, so now we can see here that the navigation is a bit confused with them, and I want to move the navigation up to the top first. So I've got everything else there together. And then we're going to group that. And we'll rename that main ad. Okay, so it helps us keep this organized. And now we can move down to the next bit. Oops, let's go back to the Surface Book. And we said we're going to add the overlay. The reason why we want the overlay is because we want to put our next bit within this section. Remember, we're going to have the sort of site padding around it. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to add in our rectangle. And so we're going to click and we're just going to drag it out for the moment. I'm not going to worry too much about size, just make sure it's properly aligned. And then I'm going to change, let's have a look, see what it looks like at 840 in the Y. Let's see what happens when we do 820, 830. This particular site's got rather chunky spaces, so let's keep it with that. And then what we're going to do is to add the 20 radius corners. Let's set the height of this to a bit higher than that, 670. So this is rather arbitrary at the moment, it doesn't really matter, just to see if we get things looking right. Okay, so we've got that in. The next thing I want to do is to add the image. And what I want to do is to actually create another rectangle. This one should be a fill color of white, so let's get that right first. Okay. And now we're going to have a second rectangle. And we're going to drag it out. And this one's a bit, you know, what feels correct. I think about a third of this should be where the image is. Again, we want to give it a 20 pixel rounding, and we want to get it so it looks uniform within it. Okay, so we've got it looking about right. Now we can start doing the maths. We know that this whole thing is 760 in height. Oh, sorry, 670. So you can see, actually, that's not far off. Let's make that 650. And that means that the height difference, or you know, the Y value from here, because its height is only 20 less, so yeah, this should have a Y value of 10 more than this. So that way we get 10 pixels at the top and 10 pixels at the bottom. So this has got a Y of 830, so we'll give this a Y. Pretty close, 840. Okay, and likewise we want it to be the same distance away from the left-hand wall, which is 10 pixels. So again, this is X of 75, so this should be 85. Oh, excuse me, hiccups. This should be 85. Now you do notice that because it's bigger, you do get slightly bigger spaces around the corners. There's not much you can do about that. I mean, we could try and shrink this down to a 5 pixel difference. It's really down to preferences here. But now we've got that, next thing to do is to add the image. So we're going to choose the image we're going to use, which is not you. In fact, we can actually now just use the arrows. Which ones do we want? Okay, looks like I've gone past it. Oh, it's this one here. Okay, so thank you, David Gavey. We're going to download you in large. And go back into here. We're going to click into that. We're going to go to place image, select the image, click back into you, and actually that's more or less placed it perfectly for me. If we actually look at the cropping on this, we can see it's a very big crop, and it looks like, if we just zoom out a bit, yeah, it's more or less centered the image in there and then kept it to the height. So we could sort of zoom in a bit if we wanted, but I think actually, just press enter to come out of that, that's actually done a pretty darn good job on its own for us. No real issues there. All that is left now is to add the text. And I would do this text in two parts. Okay, one for the title and one for the normal text. But before we do that, because we're going to reuse this element, and in fact there is something called assets, which I'm not going to delve with at the moment. But what we're going to do here is to rename these so they make sense. So this is this rectangle 2. We're going to rename. Can I rename? Yeah. I'm going to call it add back. Okay, because it's the advert at the back. This one we're going to rename as the image. Okay, so we've got those two parts to it. Then we're going to add the text. So we go along here, and we're going to call this right in top of the world track. Okay, enter, because this is where I want the next line to be. 15 nights from £1,899 PP per person. And so the first thing we want to do is to change the text size to 36. I think it's the right one. Yeah. And we want to change the color as well. Now we could keep it black, but the trick here is to try and minimize the number of colors that we keep using, different colors that we use. And so to do that, we are going to use the, I'm not sure what color, I think it looks olive on my screen, but on another screen it looks like it's like a tree color. So my monitors aren't well calibrated. There you go. So taking that to green, I think adds a little bit of customization to it. Just shrink that down. In fact, let's use that for it. And it looks roughly centered. I'm just going to move it over a little bit and move it up a little bit. Again, this is really down to personal preferences. And then we're going to add another large batch of text here. And as always, we want to make sure we've got sort of equal padding. Now, having more padding along the bottom doesn't matter so much. Now this text, we want it to be left aligned, obviously. And at this point, I actually want the text to be black. Okay, so title in this green, but the actual normal text in black. And the first bit of the text is, there we go, just a bit of sales blurb. Now obviously when you're doing your real website, you would continue this with loads of real bits of information. I don't really have any information because I'm just making this up. I might have actually had some more images to add, but I don't. So what we're going to do is put in some lorem text. Okay, so lorem ipsum text is text that looks like Latin, but it's not, and it's just fake text. But the reason why we use it is that it is done in such a way that it looks like real text. So it gives an idea of how something will look with filled in with actual text. And there are many lorem ipsum generators. You can get them free online. In fact, Visual Studio Code, when we'll be making this, has that as well. What we're actually going to do is to put in one of the plugins from Figma. So if we just come out of this for a moment, so we go back to Files. Oh, there's a plugin there as well. Click on Plugins. And we see we don't have any plugins installed at the moment. So we go to Browse All Plugins. Go to Search. Go to Lorem. Okay, and there's a couple of them here. Looks like this lorem ipsum one looks like it's perhaps the best one. It's got more uses. So let's install that and see what happens. Install plugin. You may not be able to do this if you're doing this at school. Okay, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not sure how the plugins work within this. So let's see how this works. So we go back into the wild, we go into index, let's zoom in, plugins, lorem ipsum, how many sentences I want, I don't know how many sentences I want. Oh, there you go, generate the perfect amount to auto-generate. Oh, and it deleted my original bit of text. That's something that should be aware of. Now what I want to do is just, you know, customize this a little bit. So let me just bring this down a little bit. I'm going to get rid of that bit of text. I want to add a couple of bits there, add a couple of lines there, and like I said, I like my at least original starter there. Okay, and there we have it. See, we've now got fake lorem text to give us the appearance that it's all correct. And again, we can see here we've got the add back, the image, and those. Once again, we're going to group the selection and we'll rename it. I'm going to call it add 1. Okay, now we've got add 1. We can duplicate it. I always try and find the menu, but it's not, it's just Control C and Control V. And I'll just rename that one add 2. It's not 12, 2. So now I've got them. What I want to do is just put them in the correct positions. This is really me more than anything. There's no requirement for this, but I like things to be in the order that they appear. So I'm going to drag that and drop that below main add, and then do the same for add 1. There we go. Do be careful when you do that, because you can accidentally do this, which is put it inside it, and that's not what we want. It can be really difficult to get them back out once you've done that. See, that one's still inside, so I have to move it up to the top and then bring it back out. There we go. So now I get add 2. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to drop it down. What I'm going to do is that I remember the gaps that I had here, which I can't remember now. I think it was, what was it, 30 pixels? So this one is 830 with a height of 630, so that makes it 1500. So this should be about 1530. Oh, look at that, that is. And let's just double check that. This one, well, that doesn't really help us because the image is above it, so we won't worry about that too much. What we could do is crop the image, but we won't. Again, we can cheat. We can put that little line that we had before. There you go, 800 and 830, yeah, so that's 30 pixels. And because we've got this, you know, this should be in position 75 because, yeah, there we go. So now all we've got to do is to modify it. Okay, so we can now jump into add 2. And first thing I'm going to do is to move the image over here. What height have we got? That's right, and it looks like it's about correct on the Y position as well. And then we're going to move these over here to get them roughly correct. Again, you know, we could spend a long time getting it perfect, but essentially we'll probably make a paragraph block or something have it centered align so it won't be too bad. And let's change this text here. White water rafting. Starting at £599 per person. And then let's change this text here to one about adrenaline rushes. I would think I want to just move this text up a little bit. Okay, so that's 1650. So that's, okay, it's only 20 pixels, doesn't matter. Anyway, so there we go. And that's all we plan to do for this video. We've got, as we can see, we've got the home page, main advert, the little ad selectors, text there, and the two adverts. And if we flip it over to the preview, not change the image. Okay, so click on here, let's go into it, and let's insert the image. So we'll need to download it first, so let's go into here. This is the whitewater rafting one, obviously. So let's click into there, download the large. Thanks, Rune, appreciate that. And then, oops, wrong one. Place image. And here. Now that's not quite done a good job as the last one. I want to have the guy in fully. So we're just going to go into the crop. In fact, it's not yet. And what I want to do is just move this out of the way. So actually, I don't really want to crop it. I really want to resize it. This is when it becomes a bit of a bugger. Let me just go back to crop. Oh no, there is enough space. So what it's done it to the height part. So this might be one of the few times where you have to accept. What I might just do actually in the crop is to just move it over slightly, because I don't want to shrink it because I'm going to lose the areas. So it looks like in my original one these images were slightly wider, and that's absolutely fine. Like I said, there's a part of me that sort of says, really, should I have done this into thirds, so 1/3 and 2/3, and part of me says yes, but it's a bit difficult to get that set up. Well, I suppose it's not really. Let's have a go. Let's see if we can do that. Right, let's try and do this quick as we can. So what we're going to do is go back into Surface Book. We want to go into a layout grid. We're going to add a layout grid. Okay, and then in the layout grid we're going to change that also to columns. Now we don't want red on red, so let's change this color to blue or purple, whatever that is, I don't know, but that'll do. And we're going to go from the left hand side, so 75 in the offset, 75. In fact, no, we do stretch because that still worked for us. And then we wanted a count of 3. Okay. So actually, they are pretty close to being a third. You know, depending on my gutter, which, you know, I've got a gutter of 20. Let me reduce that gutter to 10. Look at that. You saw me do it by eye, and that was truly done by eye. So I'm quite happy with that. You see, we can use multiple layouts, grids, to do what we want. And having that offset really helps us make sure we get it correct. So That's the end of this video. It's been a long one-ish, but I believe it's quite useful. As I say, we've got, you know, a good half of the homepage done. In the next video, as we said, we're going to add the smaller tiles in, and that will be a homepage created and done and dusted for us to start actually building the pages in you know, a few videos away. As always, I hope it's been useful. Please like, subscribe, comment, tell me what I can do to improve it. If you think it's awful, you know, tell me it's awful. Just tell me how to make it better. That's all I ask. This is Zen, signing out.